Okay, good evening, everyone. Uh, If we could get ourselves settled and ready. Um, Hello.
No.
I'm just saying hello. But um, okay, if I'm going to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the City of Bloomington Township, if everyone could stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Okay, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Trustee Kearns,
Here.
trustee Bolin, trustee Motney, trustee Dannenberger,
Here.
that was weird.
Not working. Yeah, turning yourself off. Is it the same for yours, Amanda? Okay. No? Okay, now it's working.
Here. That worked better.
Trustee Hendricks,
Here.
trustee Ward,
Here.
trustee Lee is absent, trustee Crumpler.
Here.
Yes, and trustee Bolin is absent as well.
Yes.
Okay.
And trustee Millawamble,
Here. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
not for township.
Okay. And then we're going to move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
I'll move approval.
Okay, Councilman, moved by trustee Hendricks, second,
Second.
second by trustee Becker. Are we doing the clickers or? Okay, here we go. Okay, all right. So the consent agenda passes, no nays to announce. We're going to move on to the regular agenda, consideration and action on the adoption of the fiscal year 2025 tax levy ordinance. For fiscal year 2025, for tax year 2024 in the amount of $2,351,600 be adopted, and the tax levy ordinance of number 2024-02 as certified by the township clerk be passed and placed on file with the county clerk. Is there a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Okay, motion by trustee Hendricks. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by trustee Crumpler. Do we have any comments? None? Okay, this is the same as last year, same amount. Okay. Okay. We have a motion, so are there any questions from trustees? No? Okay, then we just move ahead and vote. Okay, the item passes, no nays to announce. And now we're gonna move on to reports by elected officials, and we're gonna start with Supervisor Skillroot.
I have nothing much to report other than, well, I have one thing. We did a pilot program for Chestnut Health Systems for their Recovery Court Drug Court program to provide assistance for those in recovery and in transition in terms of supporting them with rent for a 3-month time frame while they were going through recovery court. We got an incredibly good reviews from that pilot program. And also some very good successes from giving them the freedom to be able to go through their drug court, recovery court programs and not be worried about getting the job first. So with that program, they've been so successful, they have additional needs and they're presenting a proposal for 37,000 instead of the 8,000 because it was so successful. We have the judges that have been very supportive of this as well. They're seeing some good turnaround from that. So it'll be presented probably next month. The other thing that will be presented next month is we're going to be providing the HERE program again because Mid Central Community Action is out of funds. And so we're going to be supporting in that way. So same criteria as applying for general assistance, emergency assistance with that program.
Okay. Questions?
Yeah,
Trustee,
I have a question on your written report. You talk about the workfare, clients actively engaged in workfare at 9 sponsor sites. And I'm wondering, some of those are like, maybe more obvious to me than others about like what they would be doing there. But I wonder if you have a rundown at all of the kinds of things that people are doing.
It's anywhere. We certainly cannot be replacing any employable person in any of those positions. They're all nonprofit and nonprofit, not-for-profit agencies and or government agency. So we have them do any tasks that don't include any driving, no mechanical usage of anything. So sweeping, cleaning, mild cleaning, sorting. At pots, they clean pots. I don't remember the names on there. Give me a second. No.
I guess I'm most curious about the churches.
The churches is all cleaning,
Mhm.
little cleaning.
Thank you.
That Mount Pisgah. Second Pres is actually in the kitchen working on meals.
okay, trustee Crumpler?
Yes, I'm really interested in hearing about the recovery housing program. It sounds
Mhm.
like really positive. How many individuals were you able to support with this first round?
13 with the first round, 2 made it through with full coverage. And those 2 were very successful going through the program. In fact, one, I'll present the letter next week, in December 9th, because it'll
Okay.
be a nice Christmas one, because he wrote a very long letter, very supportive of what we've done. And I want to explain why we did it, because people that were at the Oxford House through Chestnut Health Systems they were unable to get assistance from us for rent because the rent was through a third party, so they were subletting. We pay only the owner of the property. So we couldn't do it that way ever. And it became quite a struggle with that. So we ended up, I worked with Chestnut Health Systems Executive Director in that area, and we worked out a deal to try a pilot program, and so.
And it sounds like you're thinking of expanding it then.
Yeah,
Very good.
for sure.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Did you have anything else to add? Did you have anything else to add to your report? Okay, all right, okay. And then we'll go to Township Assessor.
The deadline to
Let's go ahead.
file complaints for the Board of Review ended on November 15th. We have a little more complaints than last year, but it's about par with it was back in 2019. You can see that the climbing sale prices are starting to affect the assessments more and more each year, and more people start to file complaints when we're starting to get to that level of, we're starting to pass the sale prices with assessments, expecting declines in the future. And when you see 2020, we were expecting a decline because of COVID, but the sale prices went up instead of down because of COVID for some reason. So the assessments never started catching up until, well, we're starting to catch up now, but even doing review of the complaints, we're getting a lot higher sale prices than assessments on comparable properties on most of the complaints. So I don't think, I think we would have gotten more complaints, but we gave a lot of information to the taxpayers when they called and asked questions and sent them their information. And they seen the data and maybe not complained actually with the complaint form, but just over the phone and verbally.
Questions? Yep.
What was, we had a public commenter last week that came to city council that, shared the impact to him and then, came up and I think approached several of us afterwards. His number was plus 37. I think that was the highest number that I'd heard. I heard a number, several that were in the 30s, but what was the range from lowest to highest?
And when you say 37, you talk about percentages or? Okay.
And that's 37% to the assessment. And that is probably the pinnacle of ones that got 37, because the highest that we went is 34 in office, but the county put an additional multiplier on the whole city, which took it up to that range. And we were trying to avoid that extra 3% from the county, because for years past, we tried to adjust by neighborhood and get what was needed to avoid a multiplier from the county. And if we went a little light on a neighborhood saying, wow, 15 seems a little too high, let's just go 12. But the county would still, they tacked on 2.5% one year, then they tacked almost 2.7 the second year. And this year we went all in and just went with the numbers. And then the county still added another 3% on top of all the work that we did in-house. Typically in the past, we didn't see these kind of multipliers with the old supervisor of assessments. Now we have a new one, so it's a different, just trying to learn how each other are going to move forward. So.
Do you have a kind of even just a directional idea of how many people or how many parcels would have been in that, say, above 30% range?
I don't know which neighborhood it was that got that. I do know which neighborhood it is. I can't quote it off my head. I believe it's on the east side. It might be Eagle View. But I know that the number of houses I'd have to see it on. I can find that detail of how many of them are.
Yeah, I was just curious. I got contacted by 3 different neighborhoods that were in the 30s. And I was just wondering, like, when we have conversations here and the other taxing bodies are having conversations, the calculations are all kind of on those averages, but then there seem to be, quite a few people that are outliers, to those averages.
Well, we go by the median, so trying to skew some of that outlier data or I'm not sure how the county does their skewing. I've read correspondence that the Department of Revenue takes out $1 million properties out of the ratio study in order to keep those outliers closer. So it wouldn't affect as large, but I don't know if the county is doing that or not.
Well, I know you've been working hard. I've heard from a number of people who have talked to you personally, and they really, really appreciated the time with you. So thank you very much.
Other questions? Okay, doesn't seem like we have any other questions. So is there a motion to adjourn?
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, trustee Hendricks and then second, trustee
Second.
Becker. Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Okay, good evening, everyone. I'm going to go ahead and call to order the meeting of the City of Bloomington Council on this fine Thanksgiving week. If everyone could stand, if possible, and say the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a moment of silence. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States. Okay, thank you. Um, Madam Clerk, could you please call the roll?
Councilmember Kearns,
Here.
Councilmember Bolin, Councilmember Motney,
Here.
Councilmember Dannenberger,
Here.
Councilmember Becker,
Here.
Councilmember Hendricks,
Here.
Councilmember Ward,
Here.
Councilmember Lee is absent, Councilmember Crumpler,
Here.
Mayor Millawamble.
Here. We're gonna move to, I know we don't have any recognitions or appointments and no public hearing. And we're gonna move to public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any public comment?
We have one person registered for in-person public comment, but we don't have any emailed public comment or virtual.
Okay. Public comment is an opportunity for speakers to provide their views and feedback to the city council. It is also an opportunity for the city council to listen and hear diverse points of view. To maximize the impact of public comment and show respect for the expression of all views, speakers should maintain civility and focus on city issues. Speakers must identify themselves for the record, but are not required to give their address. Each speaker is given the floor for 3 minutes, and the city does not respond or engage in debate. Any speaker that engages in threatening or disorderly behavior will be deemed out of order and their time ceased.
First up, we have Zach Carlson.
Oh, is it not on? People do need to hear this. Old style is a very important topic for this area. And so I just want to come and express my displeasure at the lack of old style, not the game. The game was great, even though we lost. You know, what a shame. However, I will also remind everyone that I did call dibs in the Chicago way on city manager. So as the people city manager, if this does not happen, I will make it happen. I will form a representative coup and take over. Thank you and have a wonderful rest of your night.
Well, Should we thank him? That's everybody we have, right? Okay, thank you. Well, I think that deserved to be just placed on his own, just himself, in a class by himself. So we're gonna move on to the consent agenda. Is there a motion to approve the consent agenda?
Yes.
Okay,
Motion to
okay,
approve.
motion by Councilmember Becker. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, second by Councilmember Crumpler. Madam Clerk,
We're gonna use electronic voting.
okay. Okay, the item passes. There are no nays to announce. And now we're gonna move on to the regular agenda. And item 9A, which is a presentation of the FY 2024 Annual Comprehensive Financial Report delivered by the audit firm of Baker Tilly, Virchow and Kraus, as requested by the Finance Department. I'm going to turn it over to City Manager Jurgens to introduce the item, and this is only for a presentation, so no vote.
Thank you, Mayor and City Council. Tonight, we will have our annual audit report. Before I turn it over to our Finance Director, Scott Rathbun, I want to thank him and his staff. This takes a lot of effort every year, and they always do a great job with it and make sure that our accounting is accurate and we provide transparency to the taxpayers. With that, go ahead and turn over to Director Rathbun.
Thank you, City Manager Jurgens. Mayor, Council, yes, the citywide audit was completed and finalized on October 23rd. Literally a 6-month process. You know, first of all, some of the revenues are not recognized until 2 months after the end of the fiscal year. And then there's a lot of coordination that occurs between separate entities such as the public safety pensions, having to wait for those audits to be completed, actuarial reporting, et cetera. It's a heavy lift for the Finance Department and Human Resources and many other departments around the city. It takes a big team effort, and I want to really thank the rest of the staff involved in it with the city. But with that, I'd like to introduce Michael Malott. He's a principal with Baker Tilly, our auditors. Baker Tilly is an international accounting firm with units specializing in local government. And they have just provided tremendous service to the city over the years I've been here, and not only in terms of the audit, but just other needs and resource available to bounce ideas off and concerns. So with that, I'll turn it over to Michael Malott.
Thanks, Scott, and thank you everybody for having me this evening. Before I get started, I just want to thank Scott and Palin and the finance team for their efforts. As Jeff mentioned, they work really hard. It's a significant burden on them for us to come in, kind of mess up the day while they go through their day-to-day, but we basically leave the disaster in their wake. But really, without their efforts and their responsibility and their ownership of your financial records throughout the course of the year and during the audit process, we wouldn't be able to do our job in an effective and timely manner. So just want to thank you. You have a really professional, top-notch finance team. So makes our job a lot easier as we go through the audit process every year. So what I'm going to go over tonight is really just an overview of what we did, right? You've seen the numbers, you get reports from finance on a regular basis. I don't want to regurgitate anything that's already been said, although if you have questions, obviously stop me and ask. But I do want to go over what our results were. What did we do during the course of this last 6 months to provide you the various deliverable reports that were issued at the end of last month? So first is the annual comprehensive financial report. That's the big beast, right? That incorporates the entire city's financial results for fiscal year 24. Ultimately, we issue what's called an unmodified opinion on that report. So if you think about the statements, it's 180 pages, something along those lines. There's 3 pages that represent us. The rest of it is all your numbers and your kind of perspective that you present to the public and the users. The only thing that comes from us in that report is that 3 pages. That's the independent auditor's report. That unmodified opinion says in the accounting and auditing language that you can rely on this information. It's the highest level of assurance we can provide. It means that information, $1 here, $1 here off. We don't go to that level of depth, but it means you can trust and rely that what's presented in there is accurate and can be relied upon for whoever's, whatever the user's purposes is, to trust that that information presents the city's financial health accurately as of 4/30/24. If you're going to read any section, I know not everyone loves to read all 180, 200 pages of this thing, but I do recommend reading at least the transmittal letter and MD&A. Those are the two kind of big picture summaries where that management's discussion and analysis provides kind of hard numbers and things that happened during the year. Their transmittal letter includes a lot of non-financial context. Reading those in tandem gives you a really good picture of what has happened and transpired in the fiscal year, what happened in the past, and what's coming in the future at a high level. So it kind of gives you a biggest bang for your buck, if you will. As you read through the rest of the report, it gets more nitty gritty and detailed, and not everybody's cup of tea. I love it, but that's, if you're going to read any section, I do recommend reading that. It is a good way to get a good picture of everything that's to follow from there. Ultimately, I think from a financial perspective, again, not going into any detail, it was a relatively straightforward year from an audit perspective. There were no new substantial standards or reporting requirements we needed to make in that report. So if you look at year to year, there's some relatively similar presentation of information, obviously with just being a new fiscal year and new results. In addition to our opinion in that financial statements, there's a number of other things we do that are more narrowly focused. First is what we call the single audit. That's our audit of your federal awards and your spending. We basically do a deep dive into your federal award programs, how you spend that money, not only what it's spent on, but how you ensure that the process and controls you have in place are sufficient to make sure you remain not only in compliance now, but in compliance in the future. So this year, the program we specifically looked at was your ARPA funding, your state and local fiscal recovery funds. That was a big dollar value on your single audit this year. We beat it to death. We look at what it's spent on, what other compliance requirements is reporting to the federal government, reporting to other entities, things of that nature. We really dive deep on that in accordance with the auditing standards. I'm glad to report there were no findings related to that program. That is uncommon. I think if we're going to find findings at most places, it's usually in the federal awards. There's a lot of red tape, if you will, around those awards. And we often find areas where improvements can be made or risks of noncompliance exist or actual noncompliance exists. And the fact that you guys have it buttoned up and we weren't able to find anything is just testament to how things operate in a smooth and effective manner. In addition to the single audit, we issue a separate opinion on your foreign fire insurance board. So they're incorporated in the city's audit, but we actually do a more narrowly focused audit on them as well. And we're able to issue an unmodified opinion on that component of the city. We also look at your TIF compliance. So ensuring that what you spend in your TIF areas, your TIF funds, that's spent on TIF related and allowable costs in accordance with state statutes. We identified no issues or no findings of noncompliance with that. So a clean bill of health on your TIF funds this year. In addition to those reports, there's some other statutory filings we have to do with the state. The annual financial report, which is required for the comptroller's office, we compile and submit on the city's behalf annually, and that's accepted by them, as well as issuing an opinion on the consolidated year-end financial report, which is another submission, really a regurgitation of your financial information for another state agency, the Government Accountability and Transparency Unit. It's basically a hub for all the other state agencies to go to ensure that the money they pass through to the city is being reported accurately. It's kind of part of their monitoring process. We have to issue an opinion on that report that the city prepares, and we kind of make sure it speaks back to your financial statements and your records. So again, we were able to issue a clean opinion on that one as well. So those are all the different reports we issue that relate to your numbers, your information. There's also the results and insights letter we issue, which is a deliverable from us as the auditors to you as the governing body. So whereas every other report is some element of the city's financial results and us putting an opinion on that to say that it's basically reliable, this letter is a consolidation of a number of required communications we have to make as the auditor to you as the governing body, as well as to management. It includes a wide array of different things related to what our responsibilities are, what your responsibilities are as a governing body in the audit process, whether our plan went according to plan. We don't give you the nitty-gritty details of what our plan is. That would not be what you want to know or should know. It's our job to know that. But we also need to communicate whether things went according to what we expected, where anything new arose. Long story short, as long as there's nothing really interesting or exciting in there, that's a good thing. It's mostly boilerplate because that means everything went according to plan. These letters aren't designed to congratulate you on success. It's designed to communicate issues. I'm glad to report within that letter, we had no issues. There were no significant findings of risk that we had to communicate to you. There were no issues during the course of the audit, no disagreements with management, no information we had trouble obtaining, things of that nature. Ultimately, that letter, I like to keep it boring as possible because that means things went well. In addition, there is a link in the electronic version that is designed for governing bodies with a bunch of resources, if you will. It covers a whole wide array of things, not just accounting stuff, but governance, various things that are going on in our world. Some of it's relevant, some of it's not. It changes on a pretty much ongoing basis. So if you ever look around, there might be something that piques your interest related to a whole wide array of aspects related to government finance and matters that we kind of see going on right now. And it comes in a variety of formats, from articles, webinars, links to other trainings, things like that. So I always recommend just taking a dabble in there if you ever have the time, because there might be something that sparks your interest and might be of value to you as a governing body. Lastly, I do always like to remind you guys, it's my one time a year to come up to talk to you. While we work with Scott and the finance team, you're the ones who hire us to do the audit. So ultimately we report to you, we are engaged by you to do our job. So if you ever have any questions, things you'd like to know, concerns you'd like to be raised, things you'd like us to look at, we are always available to you year round, not just during the course of the audit process, not just today. We're always available. So if there's ever a time where you'd like to connect with us on anything, we are very easy to find. So Scott has every way to get a hold of me. I cannot escape him. So if there is, I just want to make sure to let you know that the door is always open for you as a city council, because we really ultimately work for you and report to you. So with that concludes my prepared remarks. If anybody has any questions.
Questions? Well, you were brilliant. Thank you.
Well, thank you, everybody. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much. Okay, so we are going to move on to the finance director's report then.
Thank you, Mayor, Council, City Manager. I forgot I was going to make a plug for the audit before I hand it over to Michael. There's actually a section in the back called the statistical section. We have a lot of the same information in the budget, but it's a lot of interesting information about the number of parks and pools and how many service calls public safety does. So if you're ever interested in just kind of seeing some of the activity that's generated within the city budget, that's why we put it in the budget, but also it drives the numbers in the audit. There's a section in the back that provides, and it provides I think I'm doing this by memory, 10-year history. It's a lengthy history, so you can see the developments over time. For the financial summary this evening, we're reviewing October, 6 months through the year, 50% through the year for our trend review. But my usual disclaimer, for sales tax, we're just 4 months through. I think, typically next month, we are not going to do a financial report because the meeting is early in December and we won't have the financials completed for November. But normally in January or at least February, we start updating the projections for the general fund. But tonight it's going to be kind of a repeat from last month with an emphasis on sewer this time. Though. Next slide, please. So we did have some dramatic movement in our state sales tax. We do budget seasonally on a month-to-month basis. We do look at history, but things have been moving dramatically over the last couple of years. So we've kind of utilized the prior year to drive some of that monthly amount. We had a large budgeted amount for state sales tax prior year, and last month it missed the mark. So by a dramatic amount, about a little over 300,000. So we're off on state sales tax, but hoping that corrects. We'll be watching that. You can see that it's $275,000 under prior year. But again, we'll be watching that we do have visibility on this month's state sales tax, and it basically came in about $8,000 over budget. So it has, straightened out, but we'll see if we'll make up that ground. As I mentioned last month, there's kind of a link between income tax and PPRT. We're called replacement tax. That's second from the bottom. You can see we're $250,000 over year to date in income tax, but $733,000 under in replacement tax. Replacement tax is a form of income tax and pass-through entities. The state was over allocating to that in prior years. I've referenced, they reference it as a clawback. So they're holding back additional dollars this year from replacement tax, but it won't rebound to prior years. But some of that goes into the local government distributive fund, which is kind of complicated, but that's where we get paid for our income tax. So there should be some mitigation of that reduction in PPRT by income tax this year, but it's not quite keeping up. You can see 250 versus 733, but replacement tax should rebound somewhat next year. Local motor fuel tax continues to be about $30,000 under budget per month. Our local tax manager reach out to some of the station owners. We did get a reply from one, and they just said the prior year was a really high volume year, and that's why they are down. We did notice that many of the stations on Market Street on the west side of town are under prior year, and we have to think that that's because of all that construction. If you've driven through there, you know, that's really impeding, I think, utilization of some of those stations. So hoping for some rebound there, but it looks like maybe, you know, we took the budget up $200,000 over prior year, that maybe the budgeting was, you know, a little aggressive with that. The total year to date with these revenue categories is $947,000 under budget. Again, replacement tax and state sales taxes are kind of driving that. Next slide, please. So general fund, largest fund that we pay, you know, police, fire, parks, et cetera, out of, you know, no material changes on this exhibit. You know, this it's been updated year to date. The projected year end column, we're leaving that for another month or two, maybe start updating that next month. We are seeing some of those taxes coming down. So that's where we might be lowering that projected year end. I do want to highlight that investment income, you know, 50% annualized trend, we're at 69%. That annualization, depending on when cash comes in and projects hit, can kind of drive that up and down. But, you know, we were anticipating that rates were going to be coming down this year, you know, based on everything we were hearing about the Fed's attempts to mitigate inflation. The Illinois funds, which is the local government fund, the state runs, that's still at 4.75%, which is about the Fed funds rate. So, you know, we're still at right around almost 5% in interest earnings. So, you know, that's really benefiting that line item. Next slide, please. General fund expenditures. Again, no material change. Same comments about the projected year end. We haven't updated those yet. You know, we're trending over on salaries and benefits. Part of that is related to seasonality, you know, from the parks programs earlier in the year. We'll watch this to see if, you know, the vacancy savings we've been discussing recently impacts it as well, but that should sort of start to trend a little bit more evenly as we get away from that seasonality impact. And then at the bottom of that projected year end, you know, we're showing this 49. Michael didn't mention it, our auditor, but in the audit, it shows unassigned reserves for the general fund of 49.8 million roughly. That's at 49,791,480. And then, you know, we're showing that $14 million use of reserves. So around a $35.6 million, you know, with no change, no other use of reserves projected for the year, ending reserve balance. But we know we have some projects pending. Next slide, please. On this slide, I usually kind of roll through it pretty quickly. I'm thinking about maybe adding a citywide revenue and expense slide. I'll talk to City Manager Juergens about that next month, surprising him with that. But this kind of gives a snapshot. Really, the primary thing is, are our revenues trending for our enterprise funds? You can see across the bottom, you know, we're right on trend with water, sewer, storm. I mean, we're above trend. Some of these with solid waste. We try to be conservative with those budgets. I want to highlight solid waste. That's not the fund we're highlighting tonight. Councilmember Boland's not here. She usually takes interest in this. This fund, we encumber all those landfill recycling contracts at the beginning of the year. And so at the beginning of the year, we show a huge total year-to-date loss. And then as the year progresses and those revenues come in, it starts to compress. And you can see here that we're at 28,000. So this is tracking very well. Although we don't, with this fund, we were still, when we budget use of a lease for equipment, because this fund's equipment expenses are very high. We've been fortunate in the last couple of years, we've been able to pay cash instead of doing the lease. But for this budget, we still have equipment budget as a lease, so it doesn't show in their budget. And that's 1.6 million. So this is a fund that functions at a profit, excluding kind of like the large equipment purchases, but it is doing well this year. Next slide, please. And we're rolling through our enterprise funds. This month, we're highlighting sewer. Everyone understands, you know, what the the mission of our sewer fund and sewer operations are. I want to run through the budgeted revenues. You know, we've got 3.5 million in intergovernmental revenue. So from a budget standpoint, we use basically cash accounting. So that's a borrowing for IEPA loans, 3.5 million. Charges for services, that's the regular sewer fees. And then rolling down, you see $4 million in miscellaneous revenue. This is external borrowings that we'd planned for the East Street Basin project, which is my understanding getting rolled out to a future year. So that will not be occurring. So if you take out the 3.5 million and the 4 million, we're looking at about $8.6 million in regular operating revenues for this fund. Going back up to charges for services, you can see, you know, we're running a little ahead on charges for services at 56.5%. So it's doing okay as far as trending goes. Next slide, please. So sewer expenditures buried within this, you know, you can see capital expenditures of 9.4 million. And then there's some related to capital expenditures and contractuals for engineering, but we have 16.1 million budgeted. The capital projects for the year was 8.8 million. Equipment was 700,000. And then you can see this debt service or principal expense of 840 and 111. If I take all those off the 16.1 million to get to an operating expenditure, I get 7.7 million. But I know as part of the capital projects, we have the annual $2 million sewer maintenance, lining, et cetera. It's not special projects. It's really part of maintenance. So I'm going to add that back in. And so I have an operating revenue of 8.6 million that I just discussed, a regular operating expense. These numbers aren't on here, but of 7.7 million. So this fund operates at about a $1 million surplus to fund projects. So, you know, we do borrow for some projects. So it's not a perfect analysis, but it gives you some context that, you know, this fund services revenue versus operating expense, including the 2 million, has about 1 million left over, either A, to fund debt service or to cover projects. And right now the debt service is about $1 million. So it's kind of like that break even area for that. Next slide, please. And just a reminder to the community that these reports are online, as well as the full details of all of our budgets, the 2 volumes for FY25, lots of history, all the budgets going back many years are online as well. And next slide. And I added this time, so I don't hesitate to say questions or comments.
Okay. Question? Go,
Yeah.
Councilmember Ward.
Thank you for this report. I wonder if you could go back to something that kind of popped up that I'm a little surprised at. The East Street Basin and maybe the city manager needs to speak to that, but what's happening or not happening with that?
You know,
Can you help me out there?
Maybe, and I might go to Deputy City Manager Sue McLaughlin as well, but so we are in the planning stages for that. We're waiting to see if we're going to get a grant to help fund that project. And the East Street Basin project includes several, some large, some smaller projects. I think it's actually 3 basins, and it's some pipe removal and relocation and different things like that related to drainage. If we do not get we're all still planning on moving forward with it. If we do not get that grant, it's probably going to be in much smaller phases that we will start to bring those forward, but I'm not sure we're ready yet to actually bring them forward at this moment. So still projects that staff are recommending we do, just waiting to see what the funding is going to look like and if we have to do these in smaller bites or not.
And is that to say that there's some question about the grant or is it just hasn't worked its way through the process, or it's not looking good?
Just with any grant, I think, there's obviously never a guarantee, and it's going to be a very competitive grant. So we're not sure whether or not we will receive that grant or not. We still need to wait and see, and not sure when we will know the final answers. Some of the change grants have been awarded. We were not in the early award portions of it. That's not to say that we might not still, be in the later announcements.
Councilmember Motney.
Hi, just one comment and then Two questions. First of all, I compliment you on a clean, no finding audit. That's a significant accomplishment. So, it's really a testament to you and your staff and your attention to detail. So congratulations on that outcome. I'm wondering, as you focus on the sewer fund tonight, what the financial implications were for the longer term and short term financials of the ARPA funds that we directed toward the Locust Colton projects. So as we placed, I think, a significant investment from the ARPA funds to accelerate that, which is something that the city would have otherwise had to have financed and paid for on their own. Any commentary about the impact of that and how that weighs into the financial position for this fund?
So when I look at financial condition of a fund, I look at, kind of the base operating revenues versus the base operating expenditures. So I would not factor in the ARPA, related to the financial strength or health of the fund. I don't have a note on here, but there were significant dollars allocated, even part of the general fund. I don't have the exact amounts. Combination of ARPA and subsidies from the general fund to advance forward the Locust Colton phases. I can't speak to the linkage of
Sure.
that funding versus which phase. And some of the ARPA funds are sitting in kind of like a deferred revenue account. And as the expenditures hit, we recognize the revenue. And I think there's some deferred revenue sitting on the sewer fund.
So would it have reduced, though, for example, the amount of our borrowing with IEPA?
Yes.
Okay. So any guess on how much that would have been?
Well, I remember when we did the council authorized doing the full, and it was like a $10 million, and we did a subsidy that it was going to save not just sewer, but sewer and storm, about $5 million in interest over the course of the project, basically, or a life of a bond, I guess. That's a guess from memory.
Good.
And that's for the two funds.
Well, very good. I think, that ended up not only being an effective use of the relief funds, but also something that will reduce our having to allocate other funds to pay for that or to borrow to pay for that in the future, as those projects were going to be, I think, scheduled out all the way until 2029 or 2030. So,
29 now, I think. I think it got moved up.
okay. All right. Very good. And so the other thing I just wanted to mention is just this motor vehicle fuel tax. I know this is, kind of I guess, a reality of where things are today and how things are evolving from a climate policy perspective and all of that. But I think, that fund obviously has been declining for quite some time. As more and more people are using, different type of vehicles. I just am wondering if you know, how other communities might be closing the gap on that to, fund paying for their roads. Are you seeing anything creative out there from other places in the country?
At this point, I'm not aware of any other creative ways of addressing that. I haven't proactively gone out and reviewed other municipalities at this point, but I haven't heard of anything. We did increase our revenues last year. So it's been kind of one of those, it seems like it's declined abruptly. And that's been a little bit of our confusion, as to what's causing that. But I understand your point.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions? Okay, well, thank you so much, Scott. Appreciate it. Now we're gonna move on to the city manager's discussion.
Thank you again, Mayor and Council, and go to the next slide. Just a couple of things tonight, again, bringing up the bloomington.gov leaves website. On Sunday, the crews got through the entire city for the first round. And so now we switched back to red for where the areas that have not been covered in the second round and then they started on Sunday and they got the blue completed. You can see up there. So they're now on their second round through the city, get a lot of information on this website. Hopefully they're going to get through the second round quicker as they've already gotten a lot of the leaves. And then we'll see if they need to do a full round, full third round, or if they'll just be strategic about it. But they seem to be making good progress. I'd remind the council, this is the second year we've tried a new approach to picking up the leaves. It seems to be working well. Last year we had a great weather for it. This year we've had bad weather, yet we're still making progress on it and trying to hit going through at least the town at least 3 times. So want to appreciate all the crews that are working on this, Mose and his administrative team that are working on this. And just keep your eye out for the crews and go to bloomingtonil.gov leaves for more information. Next slide. And as we gather or get ready for Thanksgiving, I want to wish everybody a happy Thanksgiving. Remind everybody that the turkey trot is scheduled for Thursday morning at 8 a.m. You will not find me there. Go to a lot of community events. You will not find me running in this event though. But I think they have almost over 2,000 people, or they're expecting more than 2,000 people. So this is a great event every year. We get a lot of volunteers and the Parks does a great job of putting this on. So just wanted to share this. And then also let you know that we're going to have a lot of great Christmas events and holiday events coming up as well. Once we get into December, there's going to be a new mistletoe event for the downtown. They're going to block off some of the street, and a lot of the downtown business owners are coming together. So we'll be getting that information out. And then we have the downtown tree lighting on December 6th. So encourage the community to get out to these festival events as well. And then last slide, in December, we always just have 2 months. We cancel the committee of the whole and we have 2 meetings instead. Somewhere we got off track and we started scheduling meetings on the first Monday and the second Monday. If we kept all of those meetings, it would mean that we'd have 5 meetings back to back, and we frankly don't need those. There was nothing on our meeting on December 2nd that couldn't wait till the 9th. So we are going to cancel our meeting on December 2nd, and our next regular meeting will be December 9th. We'll only have 1 meeting in December. So wanted to share that with the council and the community. And then next year, we're going to try and get back on track to where we have our meetings on the 2nd and 3rd Mondays of the month. But for December, we'll have a light month and just 1 council meeting on December 9th. And that's all I've got. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I don't have much either because you took everything I was going to say. Just kidding. We will so just want to wish everybody a happy and safe Thanksgiving. Anybody else on council? Councilmember Money?
I just wanted to compliment the Public Works staff. 2 or 3 years ago, I know there were, concerns really about leaves and brush and lots of things like that. But I'll tell you, I mean, this week I fielded a compliment on not only the promptness, but just the attention to detail in terms of the leaf and brush pickup. And it's really showing, their commitment to customer service. And I just want to share that, when you're hearing from residents, that really affirms the direction. So thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Hendricks?
Yeah, I would echo that as well. I got a text on Sunday from a constituent who was stunned that they were out on a Sunday, that they were still cleaning up, and she was kind of blown away. The other thing that I have is also on Saturday, the McLean County Museum of History is doing their Livingston Santa unveiling on the museum grounds, which is kind of awesome. The Livingston department store that was there for 100 years or more. So come out and see the 14 tall Santa sculptures.
Okay, Councilmember Becker?
As long as we're being positive like that, I was reminded of one that I almost forgot to mention. Kudos to Billy Tyus. He got a big shout out for management around an improved crosswalk near North Point School and all the efforts he did there, and the staff as well. So great job there. Lots of positive feedback coming.
Okay, Councilmember Ward?
Yeah, I'd like to congratulate the faith leaders of our community and to give thanks, frankly, for the diversity of our community. I had the privilege yesterday of attending the 3rd annual Thanksgiving service at the YMCA. There were probably 200 and something people there, representatives of lots and lots of different faith traditions. And it was truly a warm and wonderful time to be together. And it just reinforces for me how thankful I am at the richness of this community's diversity. And so I wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving.
Okay, thank you. With that said, we're gonna ask for a motion to adjourn.
I'll move to adjourn.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Hendricks, second by Councilmember Becker.
Second.
Aye.
Okay, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye, okay, we are adjourned. Happy Thanksgiving, everyone. See you on December 9th.